so, Lord, we lift our praises to you. And we pray, Lord, that it's pleasing in your sight. We pray now, Lord, for Reid as he comes, your servant, to deliver your words that you want us to hear today. And Lord, we just ask that you will give him the calm and the words that you want him to preach today to us. We love him. We thank you for him and his willingness. And we love you, Jesus, and we thank you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Good morning. How's everybody this morning? Good. What a small crowd today. Everybody's in the back. I apologize for my breathing. So, week 3 without a pastor. It's a little bit weird. Not gonna lie, it's a little bit weird. So, I got asked to preach a few months ago, like for this week. And so, since I've been asked, I've been thinking a lot about what would be appropriate to speak about. And I think at a time like this, when our pastor's gone, something that's really important to remember is we need to have a lot of faith in Christ, and we need to know that He knows where we're going. He's going to take care of us. He's going to take care of Josh while he's fooling around with the youth group. He's going to take care of people like me who are speaking. He's going to take care of everything that could possibly go wrong. Yeah. So let's get the show on the road. So I thought one story that really stuck out when I think about faith to me is the story of Job, who really at his time was he was the most God-fearing and faithful man at the time. So I'm going to start reading Job 1, verse 6 to 11, which in the Black Bible is at page 500. One day the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them. The Lord said to Satan, "Where have you come from?" Satan answered the Lord, from roaming throughout the earth, going back and forth on it. Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil." "Does Job fear God for nothing?" Satan replied. "Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the work of his hands, so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. But now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." The Lord said to Satan, "Very well then. Everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger." Then Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. One day when Job's sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing and the donkeys were grazing nearby, and the Sabeans attacked and made off with them. They put the servants to the sword, and I am the only one who's escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, "The fire of God fell from the heavens and burned up the sheep and the servants, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." And while he was still speaking, another messenger came and said, "The Chaldeans formed 3 raiding parties and swept down on your camels and made off with them. They put your servants to the sword, and I am the only one who has escaped to tell you." And while he was still speaking, yet another messenger came to him and said, "Your sons and daughters were feasting and drinking wine at the oldest brother's house, when suddenly a mighty wind swept in from the desert and struck the four corners of the house. It collapsed on them, and they are dead. I am the only one who's escaped to tell you." At this, Job got up and tore his robe and shaved his head. He then fell to the ground in worship and said, "Naked I come from my mother's womb, and naked I shall depart. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. May the name of the Lord be praised." In all this, Job did not sin by charging God with wrongdoing. So, Job at the beginning of all this was a very blessed man because of his faith in God. He had many livestock, he had lots of crops, lots of property, lots of land. He was very healthy, and he had a flourishing family. But within a matter of 2 to 3 minutes, he had 4 servants come up to him and tell him that he just lost everything. And his response was, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." He had lost everything that he had from his entire life, but still held strong in his faith with God. He didn't waver a single bit. In all this, Job did not sin or charge God with wrong. I'm going to pick up in Job 2, verses 7 to 10, which is on page 501. "So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and afflicted Job with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the crown of his head. Then Job took a piece of broken pottery and scraped himself with it as he sat among the ashes. His wife said to him, 'Are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die.' He replied, 'You are talking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?' In all this, Job did not sin in what he said." So Satan wasn't satisfied from the reaction he got from Job. And so he decided, well, let's take away more of his stuff. He took his health by giving him these boils from his head to his toes. Now, these were very painful, very, very, very painful, very, big blisters. Don't laugh at me. Which he had to scrape off with broken pottery while he sat in ashes. So he has these huge blisters that he scrapes off while sitting in a pile of ashes. So they're all bleeding and peeling all his skin off, and he's sitting there in ashes with the ashes getting into it. That would be very painful. And on top of that, Job's wife denounced God and told him to die. I can only think of one reason that she would tell him to do this, and it's just because she couldn't deal with it anymore. She didn't want to deal with what she thought God was putting upon him, and she didn't want to be a part of it anymore. And by this point, Job had lost everything. He lost all his property, all his family, but he still held on to his faith. I think that's important at a time like now, when, especially at the beginning of this sabbatical, with 4 months without our pastor, we need to make sure that we still hold on to our faith with God and know that He has a plan for us and for our church. I just think it's something that we should remember for this entire time, that He will provide for us what we need provided. I'm going to pick up in Job 2, verses 11 to 13. When Job's 3 friends, Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite, heard about all the troubles that had come upon him, they set out from their homes and met together by agreement to go and sympathize with him and comfort him. When they saw him from a distance, they could hardly recognize him. They began to weep aloud, and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads. When they had sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights, no one said a word to him, because they saw how great his suffering was. Now I'm going to go on a little bit of a rabbit trail with this. Job's 3 friends, as soon as they heard what happened to him, they dropped everything they were doing and traveled to see him. Once they saw him and saw the torn condition he was in, with all these sores and all the sickness that was upon him, they couldn't do anything but cry and immediately turn to God. Then after that, they sat with Job for 7 days, for an entire week, without speaking a word. Now, those are some pretty committed friends. They travel from all over the place to come and see him, to comfort him, to stay with him, and just sit in silence for a week. I think that's another aspect that we need to hold on to during this time as well, is we need to be there for each other. Especially because we're not just friends, we're a church family. And we need to be there for each other. Now, I don't mean you need to go and sit at each other's houses for a week without talking, but we need to remember each other in our prayers and talk to each other when we need help, when we need comfort, when we need prayer. We need to talk to each other. And in that, we need to also relay our faith in God and remind people that everything's going to be alright. There's a plan for everybody. So I encourage you guys for the next 4 months to remember that God has a plan for everything that happens, for every aspect of your life, including this sabbatical. But we also need to be there to support each other when we need it, and to remind each other that God has a good plan for us. We need to come together as a community and hold strong until our pastor gets back. Thank you. Will you please bow your heads with me? Lord, I just pray that everybody has a wonderful week. And thank you for supporting us and helping us to know that you have a plan for this church and for everybody in it, Lord. And I pray that you instill this in everybody's hearts. Amen. Now, before you leave, if you have one of these, hold it up. Okay, now open it and take out the blue card. Okay? I want everybody to take this home and to pray for every single person on this list at least once a day. Because we need to support each other as a family, and we need to keep each other in our prayers. Do it. Thank you. Have a good week.